Ton Bin seldom visited his ancestral hometown. Life in the city was busy, and the old hamlet he once called home felt remote. But when word came that his great-uncle, old Mr. Kwong, had fallen gravely ill, Ton Bin knew he had to make the journey. He took a crowded bus along dirt roads, stepping off onto the cracked pavement near a familiar sign reading Phuc Lam Village. The air was thick with humidity, the smell of river mud drifting in the breeze. He was greeted by a distant cousin who recognized him immediately. "Ton Bin," she exclaimed, "it's been years. Hurry, Uncle Kwong's house is just down the lane." Ton Bin clutched his small duffel bag, following her through winding paths overshadowed by thick banana groves and old orchard trees. Memories of childhood summers spent racing around these fields surfaced in flashes. He recalled how, decades ago, he had watched a coffin carried out of the same house, the villagers whispering about an unborn child who had perished with its mother. Even then, the hush had unsettled him. Now he was here again, an adult, wondering if the old rumors of Trung Tang might be more than mere superstition. At Uncle Kwong's house, an aging, low-built dwelling topped with chipped red tiles. Dozens of relatives milled about, their faces drawn and somber. Ton Bin's mother, Lon, had arrived the day before, fussing over Uncle Kwong's failing condition. A hush fell as Ton Bin entered the main room. Kwong, lying on a flat wooden cot, gazed up with half-lidded eyes.
Thanh Quang whispered, voice wavering.
"You came after all." Ton Bin knelt, pressing a hand to the old man's thin shoulder. "Uncle, of course I came. I heard you were unwell." The old man tried to speak, but coughed violently. Aunt Hien, a short, round-faced woman, hurried forward with water, yet Kwong waved it off, mustering a determined expression. "My time is short," Kwong managed. "I fear there is a chain that remains unbroken. Too many tragedies in our line. It started with Mai." He paused, glancing at a dusty photograph on a nearby table. Ton Bin followed his gaze, seeing a snapshot of a radiant young woman, presumably Mai, someone from the previous generation. She was rumored to have died pregnant, an unborn child lost. "Her spirit stirs again," Kwong finished, voice trembling. Lon gently placed her hand on Kwong's brow. "Brother, rest. Don't upset yourself." But Kwong shook his head. "We cannot ignore it. She took one child years ago. She will try again if we fail to placate her. I can sense it." Another violent cough racked his frame. "When I die, you must be vigilant, or more souls in this family might vanish." A chill rippled through the onlookers. Lan's face paled. After all, this was the same Mai who had died in that horrifying accident, heavily pregnant, swirling rumors of Motizak Haimang, one body, two souls. The talk of Trung Tang, that multiple family members might pass away in quick succession if the spirit's demands were unmet, did not surprise Lon. This line had seen enough of that phenomenon. She closed her eyes, recalling how, many years prior, Mai had died in a half-built boat crossing the torrential river, leaving behind a young daughter from a prior marriage. Then not long after, that little girl drowned under mysterious circumstances, compounding the family's grief. Some said Mai's restless ghost had retrieved her own child. That evening, after Kwong drifted into a fitful sleep, Lon explained the tale more fully to Ton Bin in hushed tones. They sat by a smoky oil lamp in the back room. Outside, frogs croaked near the river's edge, and the night air pressed in with sticky warmth. "You only heard bits of the story as a child," Lon murmured. "But Mai was your grandfather's niece. She'd married into another hamlet, had one child from that union, then remarried our great-uncle Truong, with whom she conceived another baby. One day, while traveling along the main river route, a stray bullet from some petty bandits on the shore struck her. She died immediately, and so did the unborn baby. Her first child was left motherless, and for months afterwards, nightmares plagued the family. People whispered that her spirit was forced to roam, unsatisfied. Then, that first child drowned in the same river. Folks speculated it was Trung Tang, or that Mai's ghost claimed her baby. Another ritual was done with a banana tree near Mai's grave, symbolic of letting her deliver the unborn child in the afterlife. People thought it ended, but apparently, it never fully resolved. An uneasy hush followed. Ton Bin forced a shrug. "But that was decades ago. Are we sure these tragedies are connected?"
Lan nodded gloomily.
"In families cursed by Trung Tang, it sometimes recurs in patterns. Each generation must remain vigilant. Now that Uncle Kwong is on the brink, He fears she might awaken her wrath once again. Aunt Hien joined them, carrying a small pot of ginger tea. I've heard Mai's grave is cracked, the banana stump rotted. Some say the spirit never left. Maybe your arrival is no coincidence, nephew. Uncle Kwong slipped away that very night, his final breath rattling near dawn. The house erupted in wailing, typical of rural funerals. Candles flickered around his simple wooden coffin. Neighbors arrived with offerings of rice, bananas, and incense. Tonbin stood off to the side, numb, recalling Kwong's cryptic warning about Mai. The next day, local men built the funeral canopy, hammered together a small altar in front of Kwong's casket. But as they prepared for the funeral rites, an unsettling rumor circulated. Someone spotted a pale figure drifting near Mai's old grave at the edge of the orchard. Some said the figure wore a tattered cloth around her waist, hair undone. Others insisted it was an illusion of moonlight. Regardless, the atmosphere around Uncle Kwong's funeral turned heavy with fear that Mai's spirit might be roused by another death in the bloodline. An older relative, Ms. Cuc, approached Lon in tears. If this triggers Trung Tang, who might be next? We must do something. Lon resolved to find a spiritual master, just as Kwong had hinted. But first, they had to bury him. At midnight, they laid Kwong's coffin in the main room under a simple altar adorned with white cloth. Family members took turns keeping vigil, reciting prayers. The tropical heat weighed on them. A single oscillating fan hummed. The subdued glow of the overhead lamp cast flickering shadows on the walls. Suddenly, Aunt Hien dozed off in her chair, then jerked awake with a strangled cry. She panted, eyes wide. I saw Mai. She was outside the window, holding a swaddled form. She whispered that she's come for those who belong to her. Then she disappeared. Everyone froze, hearts thumping. Ms. Cuc clasped her hands in silent prayer. Lon frowned, telling them not to panic. But the hush thickened with dread. Sometime before dawn, the vigil watchers heard a faint knock, tap, 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 on the wooden walls. They rushed outside. Nothing was there, only the stagnant yard, scattered banana leaves, and the quiet orchard beyond. A chill ran through them, reminiscent of ghostly knocks. They retreated inside to pray until sunrise. The funeral day arrived. Locals in white mourning headbands formed a solemn procession, carrying Kwong's coffin to the small cemetery beyond the orchard. The white banners fluttered in a hot breeze. Drummers tapped a slow, mournful rhythm. As the coffin descended into the earth, Lon clutched her temple, feeling a wave of dizziness. She could almost hear a woman's voice in the distance, moaning in grief. Was it Mai's ghost lamenting? After the burial, relatives gathered under a makeshift tent for a modest funeral meal. People recounted old stories about Kwong's life. But across all the chatter, whispers about Mai's ghost circulated. Will she stir again? Another life might be claimed, an uncle muttered, glancing at the orchard as though expecting a phantom to appear. That evening, Ms. Cuc insisted, we must speak to Master Tone. He's known for dealing with restless spirits, especially those tied to Trung Tang. Lon nodded in agreement. They decided to invite Master Tone to perform protective rites for the entire extended family, hoping to quell any further tragedy. Master Tone arrived the next afternoon, wearing a simple brown robe, carrying an old wooden box of ritual implements. He was in his 60s, hair grayed, face kind but serious. He asked many questions about Mai's death, the baby's fate, the prior banana tree ritual. Trung Tang is tricky, he said, especially if the deceased was pregnant. She might feel her unborn child was never truly released, so she remains in a limbo, gathering resentments across the years. Lon explained how the family had once tried burying a banana trunk near Mai's grave, hoping to let her deliver the spirit child in the afterworld. We thought it ended, Lon said, voice quivering. But perhaps the ritual was incomplete. Master Tone rubbed his chin. We must see her grave. If cracks formed or the protective wards have dissolved, her spirit might have awakened anew. So that afternoon, a small group, Lon, Aunt Hien, Ms. Cuc, and Master Tone, made the trek into the orchard. Tall grass swayed around them, revealing a neglected tombstone. The grave's top had indeed cracked, and the ground near it caved slightly. No banana stump remained. A hush settled over the group. This is a clear sign, Master Tone murmured. Her resentment or sorrow seeps out. Kwong's recent death might have reopened the cycle. She could be looking for further kin to pull into the afterlife, someone from her lineage. Everyone tensed at the notion. Ms. Cuc let out a soft cry, remembering she had teenage grandchildren in the family. Could they be targets? That night, 2 teenage cousins in the extended family reported nightmares. They described seeing a pale woman beckoning them near a watery place. One cousin, Mayan, said, "In my dream, she held a small figure in cloth, telling me to come with her. She said we shared the same blood, and she'd take me to be with her child." Panicked, Mayan recounted it to the elders the next morning. Everyone grew fearful that Mai was specifically targeting younger descendants. Master Tone listened gravely. "We must do a thorough ceremony to let Mai fully give birth in the afterlife, to release her unborn child spirit from clinging to this realm. Only then can she pass on peacefully without dragging living kin with her." Hence the plan formed, a second banana tree ritual, this time done properly, with the entire family's involvement, culminating in a final release ceremony. "We'll also need a clay effigy to represent the unborn child," Master Tone explained. "If we do everything right, Mai's spirit will see the child is free to ascend. She can depart without harming your line further." They prepared extensively for the next few days, selecting a robust banana sapling, gathering offerings, rice, fruit, candles, joss paper, and crafting a small clay doll swaddled in cloth to stand for the unborn infant. Late one afternoon, while carrying these items to the orchard, Lon glimpsed a fleeting figure out of the corner of her eye, a young woman in old-fashioned attire, standing between 2 banana stems. In a heartbeat, she vanished. Lan's scalp prickled. She rushed forward, finding only empty shadows. She told no one, but her heart hammered at the evidence that Mai's spirit truly roamed here. Master Tone insisted on a twilight ritual. Spirits often wander more freely at dusk. We must meet them partway if we want this to succeed. So as the sun sank, a group of family members, plus curious neighbors, assembled near Mai's grave. They formed a circle with woven mats, placed the banana sapling and the clay baby figurine at the center. Incense smoke curled upward, the orchard quiet except for the chirping of cicadas. Master Tone began chanting ancient lines, occasionally sprinkling water from a gourd over the banana sapling. He used a small knife to cut shallow slits in the trunk, symbolizing labor pains. "Let Mai see," he intoned softly. "This tree stands for her own womb. Let her child pass from it into the afterworld. She needn't search among the living." Smoke from joss paper swirled around them, and the hush felt otherworldly. Some family members quivered in fear. Ms. Cuc clutched her robe, muttering prayers. Then Master Tone signaled to Lon and Aunt Hien to gently place the clay baby at the foot of the sapling. "This is the unborn child, set free from mortal ties. We offer it to the spirit. She can cradle it in peace, no longer seeking a living child among us." The air seemed to stir. A faint moan carried on the breeze, as if a woman exhaled sorrow. Some thought they saw the banana leaves ripple unnaturally. Master Tone pressed on. "We the living humbly ask you, Mai, to accept this symbol. Your child belongs to you, not to us. Release us from your lingering hold." He lit a small ceremonial fire in an iron pot, instructing them to burn joss paper shaped like miniature clothes and a cradle. The flames crackled, casting flickering orange on the bark of nearby orchard trees. Once the paper finished burning, Master Tone carefully severed the banana sapling at the base, letting it fall. Aunt Hien took the clay child, now lightly coated in the sap, and placed it on a special tray. They set this tray on the grave. Master Tone motioned for everyone to back away, leaving the tray in place. Then, in a subdued voice, he explained, "We let the spirit see her baby. In the next step, we will remove it for a final release, so she can ascend together with the child. That ensures she doesn't remain tethered, searching for living kin." Sure enough, after a few silent minutes of chanting, Master Tone took the tray from the grave. They processed back to the clearing, where a small fresh pyre was arranged. Placing the clay figure gently on the embers, they ignited it. As the figurine began to crack from the heat, a hush fell. Some said they heard faint wailing, but it might have been the night wind. The figure disintegrated into glowing shards, eventually turning to ash. Master Tone scattered the ashes near the orchard's edge, proclaiming, "Return to the realm beyond. Let no further tears stain this family." All watched with bated breath. Ms. Cuc prayed under her breath for Mai's acceptance. The orchard remained still. Master Tone offered a final vow, Hence, the unborn child spirit is freed. Mai, you have no cause to linger or claim living kin. Lon felt an enormous weight lift from her chest. She squeezed Aunt Hien's hand. May it be over, she whispered. Uncle Kwang's funeral concluded with a standard memorial. People relaxed. The teenage cousins who'd had nightmares reported none further. Mai On, the girl who saw Mai in her dreams, said she now dreamed of only normal, everyday scenes. No pale figure beckoned. The tension around the homestead noticeably eased. Still, Master Tone advised caution. Trung Tang can be persistent if the spirit harbors too much resentment or if the rituals are incomplete. But from what I sense, Mai has accepted the unborn symbolic birth. She should at last cross over. Over the following days, no bizarre occurrences were noted. The orchard felt ordinary in the daylight. At dusk, the hush carried no dread. Lon and the others quietly gave thanks. They performed one more small ceremony to bless Kwang's grave, ensuring he too was at rest, with no entanglement left for Mai's wandering soul. Just as the family relaxed, a tragedy nearly struck. Mai On, the teenage cousin, was helping fetch water from the broad river behind the orchard. She slipped on a wet stone, tumbling in. Before she was swept downstream, her uncle and father yanked her out. She coughed and shivered, but survived. That evening, she confessed to Lon, while I flailed in the water, I had this moment where I thought I saw a woman's face beneath the surface, but then it vanished and I was pulled out. She trembled. I wonder if it was Mai's last farewell, or just my imagination. Regardless, no further harm came to her. Master Tone, upon hearing the story, suggested, spirits can linger around old watery locales, but I suspect no malevolence now. Perhaps it was simply a final farewell. Some nights later, Lon awakened from a dream, tears streaking her cheeks. She recounted it to Aunt Hien in the morning. I saw Mai, cradling a tiny infant made of glowing light. She smiled at me, no anger, just relief. Then she turned, stepping through a door of shimmering water, disappearing. Lon paused, voice cracking. I think it means she's finally gone, content with her child in the afterlife. Word spread among the extended family that Mai had visited Lan's dream to show gratitude, signifying no further tragedies. This news calmed the entire clan. The tension that had dogged them for decades melted away. With Kwang's burial complete and the dreaded cycle apparently broken, the family decided to rebuild the orchard path, pruning overgrown weeds around Mai's grave so it wouldn't be neglected. They planted a second banana sapling, but purely for fruit, not for spiritual symbolism. A simple wooden sign near the grave read, "Here rests Mai and her unborn child. May they find peace beyond." Sometime later, Uncle Kwang's house was inherited by a cousin. She reported no hauntings, no chilly moans in the orchard. In fact, the orchard thrived, producing fruit in abundance. The rumor of Trung Tang in their lineage quieted. People eventually resumed normal life, focusing on farm chores and daily joys. Lon lingered a few extra weeks, helping finalize affairs before returning to her modern city life. On the day she left, Aunt Hien accompanied her to the bus stop, giving a final hug. "We overcame it, sister," Aunt Hien said softly. That unborn child was the key. Setting the baby free allowed Mai to move on. Let's hope no more sorrow visits us. Lon nodded, eyes wet. We'll keep praying, but I think we're safe. And Uncle Kwang can rest easily, knowing the chain has been broken. Years have passed. Ton Bin, who first arrived with quiet skepticism, also grew older and busier with his own life. But occasionally, he returned to the old village, strolling the orchard. The new banana plant soared tall, no longer a symbol of mourning, but simply a source of fruit. Mai's grave, though modest, retained a small bouquet of fresh wildflowers that local relatives replaced monthly, an act of respect. The cracks had been repaired, the land around it tidied. People claimed the orchard felt tranquil, no longer brimming with ghostly tension. On a late afternoon, with the light turning gold across the farmland, Ton Bin stood at Mai's grave. He recalled the swirl of drama, Uncle Kwang's final words, the nights of dread that followed, the dream in which someone glimpsed Mai. Then the banana ceremony with Master Tone that offered her spirit a chance to deliver her child in a symbolic way, freeing them both. He almost felt the orchard breathing in calm contentment, as though echoing their relief. Sometimes, he swore he heard children's laughter carried on the warm breeze, but turning around revealed only rustling leaves. Perhaps a sign that Mai and her unborn child had found joyous new beginnings beyond mortal sight. He left a small incense stick by the grave, stepping away. No further tragedies marred the family line. Freed from that Trung Tang snare, they advanced peacefully, forging new legacies. And if any future generation asked about the old scandal of Mai's watery death, they'd be told, we overcame it with the final birth. She found her baby, and we, the living, found serenity.